Good morning, ladies, and welcome to our third and final installment for Megillas Rus this year, Tafshin Pei Gimel. And we are right about to hit the very murky part of the Megillah. We are in Perek Gimel, third chapter, fourth verse, Pasuk Daled. That's where we left off last time. We just to recap, just basically what we've said until now is that the harvest of the barley season is over, and we said there's 3 months wait people have to have after conversion to get married, or after being an almana. They have 3 months they have to wait to get remarried, just in case they're pregnant is one reason. I'm sure there's other spiritual reasons as well. So she was told by her mother-in-law to go, according to most opinions, go to the mikvah and to get dressed for Shabbos, and then go down to where they're having the threshing floor, which is where they're going to do winnowing, stuff that was threshed and will be threshed, and then winnowing afterwards. Don't tell anyone, and you should go in the corner of the room, hide yourself, and then in the middle of the night, you should reveal yourself to him. Okay. So, and it says in Pasuk Daled, Vayhi v'shachbo, and when he'll lie down, the adatas hamakom, and you know the place, asher yishkav sham, that he's going to be sleeping. Then when you see that place, uvas, you should go v'gilis margalosav, and when he's in the middle of the night, you should uncover his feet, v'shachaft, and you should sleep by his feet. V'hu yagid lach es asher ta'asim, he's going to tell you what to do. Now, the Malbim tells us that Yibum, the reason why there's Yibum and Chalitza with a shoe, well, the Chalitza, excuse me, not the Yibum, is with a shoe. You've heard of that they take a Chalitza shoe if somebody's not going to marry a close relative, the wife of a close relative. The reason is that the shoe is supposed to be the body of the guf, of the neshama, rather. That the shoe covers the neshama, just like the body covers the neshama. The idea is, says the Malbim, well, there's many ideas here. You know, there's a halacha that when somebody's nifter lo aleinu, that person has to, the shoes are not given away to anybody else. You have to throw out the shoes, showing that no one can take, so to speak, that person's place. But on top of it, the reason why it's, why the mashal, why the parable is given of the shoe, which is like the body to the soul, is because the shoe gets very dirty. It gets the dirtiest of all parts of your body. And unfortunately, the neshama has to deal with this dirty, filthy world. And if there's no body, the neshama cannot deal with this world. The world is too dirty for the neshama. So it protects us. And that's the idea why they do that symbolism with the shoe if someone has to do chalitza. Any case, so that's the hint here, that he should do yibum by uncovering his feet. Now, what has she answered in the next pasuk, pasuk K? So it's verse 5. She said, Kol asher tomri elai ese, everything you tell me to do, I'm going to do. That's very resemblant of what the Jewish people said when they got the Torah. They said, Naaseh v'nishma, we will do, and later we will understand. Even if we don't understand, we're going to do it, because so she took upon her mother-in-law, which is very highly unusual. Her mother-in-law to her was like such a rebbitzin, that this was like Kabbalah Satara, was accept whatever you tell me to do. That's the way she, you know, she took upon herself to listen to her rebbitzin. Now, and Pasuk Vav, 6th verse, but Tered Hagoren. Now, Rus is going to change up the order. Her mother-in-law told her previously, if you look at Beis in Gimel, it says her mother-in-law told her, get dressed in your Shabbos clothes. We mentioned that last week. We said that people minimize dating. If somebody is more knowledgeable than you in Torah, it's what's wrong with getting dressed up in a very formal way to see, you know, somebody that's more well-versed in Torah than you. You're respecting the Torah when you dress formally on a date. You know, like people think it's so casual and all that. But in any case, so it says that, so she was told to get dressed first and then go down to this place. She switched up the order. So this Rabbi Renner Shlita from Derech Chaim tells us that she switched up just like Betzalel switched up. Moshe Rabbeinu gave over to Betzalel to make the Aron and then make the Mishkan. But Bezalel switched the order because he realizes that was Moshe's intention. How can you build the Aron first and not have a home for it? So too, how can you go down dressed in your finest clothes, in the middle of the night where you may meet up with somebody? So instead, she went to this place. Somewhere in the place itself, she changed her clothing obviously in a modest place, because she felt her mother-in-law meant everything in the spirit of tznius, and she felt she had to switch up the order to first dress herself and then go down to the threshing place. Now, so she did everything her mother-in-law told her to do. Vayochal Boaz, and Boaz ate and drank. Vayitzav libo, and his heart was gladdened, and he went to sleep in the pile. I better turn the sound down 1 second, please. Okay. Anyways, so he went to sleep in the corner of the piles where the threshing was being done. And she came secretly and she uncovered his feet. You could just imagine the scene. It's terrifying. And we mentioned last week that Rus was 40 years old, one of the four most beautiful women the world had ever seen. And here she's going to this 80-year-old man. I've never heard of a shidduch with that much of a age difference. That's quite a difference. And she's, and she was such a tznius woman, and she reveals his feet, and she slept by his feet. Okay. Now, why does it mention that he ate and his heart was gladdened and all that? The Medrash says, what does it mean by yitav libo? Shebirech al mazono, that he said benching. He benched. He said birkas hamazon. That was what he was happy about. Now, most people are happy about the meal, and then we bench, but not Boaz. Boaz was happy he had an opportunity to bench. Rav Shimshon Pincus used to rail about this. He felt, how can people perhaps have an opportunity to say benching? A lot of people try to have easy meals where they don't have to say too many brachas before and after. And he said, here you have an opportunity to bench the Ribbon Shalom, to say that it's mina Torah to bench. How can you pass up that opportunity and instead just say a short after blessing? Now, if people have diets, of course, we have a different calculation to make. However, but it's something we shouldn't look, oh, you have to bench, like it's something we have to do. And there's so many stories, famous stories about people. I'll say the one that's least popular, and that is of, I believe it was the Brisker Rav, that one time he asked a daughter and a daughter-in-law or a daughter, they were setting up for him for Shalosh Shudas. And he told them for Shalosh Shudas, say, please give me an apple and a banana. I want that for Shalosh Shudas. And meanwhile, he comes home for Shalosh Shudas. They notice he doesn't touch the apple or the banana. And they asked him, why didn't you eat it? He told us to set it aside for you. He said, I was counting 100 brachas I had to make today. And I saw I was missing 2, because Shabbos, you make less brachas than you do during the weekday. And he said, I need a ha'adama and I need a ha'etz. And he said, I got an aliyah. So I made a bracha before reading the Torah and after reading the Torah. I don't need to make the brachas anymore. That's how he regarded food, as something like how much do I have an opportunity to thank Hashem when I eat something. Now, he ate sweet things, we're told by the Medrash, that why did he eat sweet things? Because he felt after this harvest, this was the first harvest, like after all those years of famine, he felt he wants to gladden his heart. Then he'll have more appreciation to Hashem. He wants to show Hashem how much he loves him and regards him. And I want to pay back. And, so he felt he should eat sweet things. I heard a story. I'm not going to quote the name. I heard a story. There was that Rav Shach Satzal once told a very wealthy man. He told him, this wealthy person wanted to live very simply. And Rav Shach says, if you live too simply as a wealthy person, you're going to feel I have enough. So when it comes to giving to the poor, you're going to have a hard time parting with your hard-earned money. You're going to say, I don't eat this, so why should he eat this? I don't have this, so why should he? He says, no, sometimes the function of the wealthy is that they should enjoy life, and all of us should enjoy life. And if we enjoy life, it's easier to give back. It's easy. Sometimes people don't realize just to change a mood, to do something for yourself sometimes can give you enough where you can daven better afterwards and you can help more people afterwards. And we shouldn't deny ourselves even if just to be a vehicle by which to help other people. So another interpretation of Vayitav Libo, that he gladdened his heart. Tovli Taras Picha Mialpei Zav V'Chesed. He learned Torah, says the Medrash, that made him happy. Rabbi Rennert mentions that this learning enabled him to later on withstand what he's about to withstand. That it gladdened his heart. And when after a person learns Torah, if we make it our business, even as women, to learn something every day in halacha and in musar, it helps us guard ourselves from any problems we could have later on in the day thereby. Okay, anyways, now okay, so he went to sleep now thinking about Torah. It just recently came out that Rav Chaim Kanievsky, Zichrono Livracha, like Rebbetzin Kanievsky said, he was sleeping thinking about Torah. She saw his dream. Sometimes he'd act out in the middle of the night, motioning something that had to do with something he was learning. So, Baruch Bear, I know, was very big on that too. He'd fall asleep right after learning and wake up with something learning. He'd get himself in the right mind. Now, so all right. So here we come to the typical part. It was in the middle of the night. He got up midnight to learn. And by the way, David HaMelech always got up midnight to learn and to play his harp and to sing praises to Hashem, because he wouldn't have been in the world had it not been for this upcoming moment. A lot of people think it's going to get much murkier than it does, but it actually doesn't. Anyways, that's why it says by David HaMelech, Chatzos Laila Akub Lahodos Lacha. So this is what David HaMelech would say when you get up in the middle of the night. What happens? He gets up in the middle of the night to learn. And then he's Vayila face, Vayacharat, I'm sorry, and he's terrified. And Vayila face, it says his skin like hardened out of fear. He was so terrified. Now, what were his feelings at that moment? There's three different interpretations by the Meforshim. Some people say he sees this woman sleeping by his feet. He's thinking, a chutzpah priestess, a woman, how could she sleep? I'm here alone. How could she do this? He could have been very angry, or he could have felt his kavod was insulted. He's hit the gadol hador, and he sees this woman sleeping at his feet. What is that? Or the third thing could be that in his reaction is that he felt a temptation. Like, why? What's going on here? So his skin became hard like a turnip, because the lefes means a turnip by face. And then in Sanhedrin, he sees this woman sleeping by him. The Gemara Sanhedrin tells us that his test was worse than Yosef at Tzadik's. Yosef at Tzaddik, she would change her clothes 3 times a day and say, look, I've got Givenchy and I've got Dior and I've got all these things. Here, it's somebody in the room alone. Nobody's there with him. Middle of the night, like, the temptation was great. Now, the Hinei Isha, and behold, it was a woman. Like, why does it say it in that way? The Medrash Rabbah tells us, first of all, Isha is just like Ish. Remember we said Ish Yehudi. Whenever it says Ish, it means like. So what happened was, it says when he woke up to get to learn, Radak out of reaction, like she didn't know what to do. So then, according to the Medrash, this was harder to understand. He thought maybe it's what's called a Shin Daled. It's maybe one of these evil spirits lurking in the middle of the night. So he touched her hair, because apparently they don't have hair, because he wanted to know if this is a real person. And then he said, "Are you real, or are you a spirit?" She said, "I'm real." And he said, "Are you a man or a woman?" She said, "I'm a woman." And then he said, "Are you an Ashes Ish, or are you Pnuya? Are you single?" And she says, "I'm single." And he says, "Are you Tameya or Tahora?" She says, "I'm Tahora." So here she checked off the whole list, like, very scary. And this is, now remember we mentioned at the first installment that before the Beis Din of David HaMelech, Yichud was allowed with a single woman, right? She was allowed a single woman. And he says a woman is sleeping at his, a woman was like lying at his feet, And now this is a real hard balance. On one hand, it kept his holiness the entire night, and yet He didn't chase her out. It says shocheves, that's present tense. She was sleeping, present tense, lying, present. He didn't scare her. He didn't scare her away. You'd think, one of two things. He's going to start screaming, get out of here. What are you doing? No, he kept his cool and he didn't insult her. And simultaneously, he kept his holiness, which is always a hard act to have both going at the same time. So that continues into the next pasuk test, which is what we just kind of paraphrased. Mi'at, when she's asking, who are you? That was all those questions he asked. And she says, listen to this language. Anochi Rus amasecha. I am Rus, your servant. Ufarasta knafecha lamasecha. And spread your wings upon your servant. Ki goel ata, because you're my redeemer. It talks about, this says it's lashon nikia. That this is a clean way to say, marry me, where we find like by Ashes Potiphar kept telling, in not such a nice way, Yosef to go to her. She said it, spread out your wings like this. So, allegorical, whatever that means, it's like, it's holy. The Rebbe Renner brings down the Mesilas Yesharim in Perek Yud Aleph. We're told that nivel peh, like bad language, is arayas shel dibur. If you want to have, it's like you're committing the sin of adultery or something in that line of thing by speech. That our speech should be clean as well, the way we speak. So it's such a beautiful way that she expressed herself, because you're our redeemer. So now, what does he answer her? Brucha at, you should be blessed. Gave her a bracha. So she really had no womb, according to many of the Meforshim Rus. And this blessing we talked about last week, getting a bracha from a tzaddik, has basis twice in this sefer, that this is where it is advisable to go to a tzaddik and get a bracha. So he gave her a bracha tzaddik, that you should be blessed. He called her BT, hinting to her that she could be, that she's kosher as a giores. And also he didn't want her to be afraid. Now, according to the Medrash, he was, as we said, 80 years old. There are different interpretations. Some people say that he had no children. Others say he had 30 children and they all died. All 30 of them passed away. And Rus was unable to have children. And so that's what Rav Yochanan says. He was 80 without children. And Nomi, in last week, we talked about how she davened for him. Our benefactor should be blessed, and he could be the Goel. And anyway, so in the Gemara Baba Basra, Tzaddik Aleph tells us that he had 120 parties for his 30 children when they married, and they all died. He said they had like no children. So then he says, Brucha at la Hashem. What does it mean, la Hashem? He says, I see what you're doing is for the sake of heaven. It's pretty obvious. Who would want an 80-year-old man? We'll see in a minute why. Your chesed, your last chesed, the chesed you're doing now is greater than the first one. The first one is that you converted to Judaism, or that you followed your mother-in-law and did what she said. And it's a very rare thing to be so kind to your mother-in-law. But now this chesed is even bigger, because it says in the Medrash, Amar Rav Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak. Rav Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak says, Ha'isha oheves bachor miskein mizakein asher. He says, a woman loves, even if he's a nebach, even if he's poor, she'd rather have a good-looking man, young man, than old man, as wealthy as he may be. So all these people, like in the Goyish world, that marry these older men that are multimillionaires, they still would rather marry somebody else. They have ulterior motives probably. But it says, so you see, it's not just boys that want to marry a good-looking girl. A woman wants to marry, not necessarily good-looking, but she wants a young man versus an older man. Any case, so now so he said, you didn't go after young men, whether he's poor or rich. You went after me, like because I'm the next in line to redeem you, to do yibum, to bring the neshama of Machlon. Pasuk Yud Aleph, 11th verse. Va'ata biti, and now my daughter Al Tiri, don't worry, everything you say I will do for you. So he's also, again, echoing this thought of Dasev and Ishma. Just like, Rus is doing everything Nomi says, Nomi's trying to do everything Hashem says, and Boaz is also trying to do everything Rus says. So don't worry, I'm going to try to help you. And he calls her BT here. Now we're talking about a very awkward situation, but he's saying it for encouragement. You know what I mean? I just have a little thing to mention. Somebody I know that's a social worker once told me she had to go into a room with a bunch of men, and they were all living Rabbanim and social workers meeting about some purposes in the Jewish community here in Toronto. And she was the only woman. She walked in, she was like a little awkward walking in, and Rabbi Kersner, he should rest in peace, stood up because he knew her, and he encouraged her to come in and said a few nice words to her just to make her feel comfortable. So that's and I've seen many times the Beis Din of Toronto, when they convert somebody, they right away after the conversion, they say, quite a bit to make the person feel very comfortable, say something lighthearted, a little bit light, to make the person feel part of the Jewish people and welcome. It's important to say a few words, even if you have a very heavy meeting with somebody, to first start off something light and nice and pleasant, and then get into the difficult situation. Not just get right to it like some people want. It's not good, because you want everyone to feel calm and relaxed when they're discussing it. She still, and the reason he comforted her so many times not to be afraid, even though she did everything her mother-in-law said, she was very embarrassed the way this whole thing looks, like she's really doing something. Now, again, we said Mashiach has to come out of these strange type of situations, right? And he says, right now, and since she listened to her mother-in-law, Mida Keneged Mida, we find that he listens to everything she says. Kiodea kol shar ami. We're still in verse 11. All the shar ami, a lot of people say the people that sat at the gates were the Sanhedrin. All the Sanhedrin know ki eshes chayil at, meaning they all know a Moaviah can convert, and also they know you're an eshes chayil, that you're a woman of valor. Now, 12th verse. Va'ata, and now, ki amnam ki goel anochi, even though I am a person that can redeem you. Gam yesh goel karov bimeni. There's somebody that comes first in line that could, that can redeem you. Lini halayla, he tells her to stay there at night. Let's just first talk about this for a moment. Now there are two opinions in the Gemara as to what Boaz's relationship was to Elimelech. Okay, Elimelech is the son of Nachshon ben Aminadav, who was the one that first person jumped into the Yam Suf, right? So according to one opinion, there were three brothers of Nachshon. One was Elimelech. Well, one was, the oldest was Tov, or maybe he had another name, we're not sure. Or Elimelech, and then Boaz. So that he was a brother to Elimelech, according to some opinions. According to Rabbi Yoshua, there were three brothers, Salmon, Elimelech, and Tov. Salmon was the father of Boaz. Okay, so in that case, Elimelech was the nephew of Ploni Almoni, or Tov, and Ploni Almoni did have rights to redeem her first. Okay, so he tells her, stay here tonight. And you can just imagine, and the Medrash says, tonight you're going to sleep here without a husband. Tomorrow you'll be married to someone. He's not even saying himself. You may be married tomorrow to Tov, but you're going to, and in the morning, im yugalech Tov, some people say we're talking about the man Tov, or if he will redeem you, good, he will redeem you. And if he doesn't want to redeem you, I'm going to redeem you. And I promise in the name of God, you sleep here till the morning. Now, why did Boaz stay with her? We're talking there were 6 more hours of the night. Why did Boaz put himself into such a challenging situation, be alone with this drop-dead gorgeous woman for 6 more hours? But the Ralbag felt there was, whatever happens, it looks like it's going to be difficult. If he's going to tell her to leave right now, it's the middle of the night. Where's she going to go? I mean, it can be very dangerous for her. As we mentioned, there were a lot of thieves in that generation. There were a lot of women of ill repute. Unfortunately, we're talking a mere few hundred years after giving of the Torah. And he was afraid of that. It's sakana for anyone. Middle of the night is when problems occur. You shouldn't go middle of the night. So now, and also her honor, it's not, it's going to look like if someone even sees her exit, it looks like something happened over there, and he doesn't want to do that for her honor. So for that reason, he told her to stay. And so it says for 6 hours he was davening the whole night not to be nichshel and to not make a chilul Hashem. The whole night she's davening, he's davening, they're both crying, whatever is going on over there. Now, so Pasuk Yud Dalet, that's 14th verse. Tishkav Margalo Slav, she slept at his feet, and Ad HaBoker until the morning, right when it was, you could see the first rays of light. It was just barely able to see another person. That's when she got up, and he said, he says it's not proper, but I don't want people to see her this morning. So he got up and he accompanied her all the way home. And he says, give me the scarf that you have. She was wearing a scarf as well, and hold on to it. And he counted, it says 6 kernels of barley, and he gave it to her. They went to the city. According to many other, so why 6? Because 6 tzaddikim were supposed to come out of, just like a Navi has to do something to actualize a prophecy. Like Avram Avinu was told to walk up and down Eretz Yisrael to make it holy, even though he wasn't going to live the width and breadth of Israel, he did it for his future generations. She was going to have David, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah. They all came from this union, and Mashiach Tzidkenu are all coming from the union of Rus and Boaz. Many people say he didn't just give her 6 kernels. Like what kind of generosity is that? He gave her 6 sa'in, which is a measurement of kernels. They approximated to be about 190 pounds of barley he gave her. So they probably took some kind of wagon, whatever, to go back. So the 6 hours they abstained from the sin, and they walk, and then he walks her towards where she came from, and Vayavo Ir, he came. It mentions him and not her. That the Medrash Rabbah, it may not look good on him, but he still walked her home because he felt that's the proper thing to do. He cares more about, her safety than he cares about what it looks like on him. Now, so then when she came to her mother-in-law, Pasuk Tes Zayin, her mother-in-law asked her, Mi at biti, who are you? Meaning, are you married? Are you single? What's your status? And she told her everything that the man did for her that time. Okay. Now, so Nomi answers, she gives some, she says, I have 6 kernels of barley. He came because he told me, don't come empty to your mother-in-law. Like now, the reason she had to talk like this was because, there is a question in halakha that a person should not give gifts to someone of the opposite gender. On Purim, like it's not proper, even though there's a man alone, it'd be nice to give him shalach manas, give him in the name of the family or the name of the husband. Don't give him because that's why the only time you give gifts is a chassan and kala, give gifts to each other, because that's a sign of affection, and you don't do that. So he gave it for Naomi, the widow, the almana, who's his relative, and that was more proper than to give right now to Rus, who's not married to yet. Anyways, he says, don't come empty-handed. You have to feed, it's a relative and she's penniless, so he wanted to give her something. Now, so, very interesting. In Pasuk Yud Zayin, it says, Ki Amar Eli, because he said to me, if you see in parentheses, it says, it is written, you read it, Eli, but the word Eli does not appear in the Megillah. It just says, these 6 kernels of barley he gave me, because he said, why doesn't it not say Eli in the actual writing of the Megillah? Because Boaz never looked at her once yet. Because he said, not to me, because he didn't look her in the face. Al tavoy rakama chamasek. Don't come empty to your mother-in-law. Okay, now, and then Pasuk Yud Ches, and she said, Shvi biti ad asher tedin. Stay here, my daughter, until you'll know how this matter will end. Because this man, It says tzaddikim do everything with zrizas. He's not going to stop his day until the matter is taken care of. He's not going to leave it. You tried your hardest, and now let's see what Hashem wants to do. So we see the kindness of Rus and Boaz. Remember, we said this whole Megillah is about Gemilas Chesed. That the whole Torah is really Gemilas Chesed. The beginning of the Torah is Hashem makes clothing for Adam and Chava. The end of the Torah, Hashem buries Moshe Rabbeinu. That the whole essence of the Torah really is to teach us to not be self-centered and to think of the other. And we mentioned that was the proper, appropriate approach to Kabbalah Torah, is that we're supposed to feel 6 kernels of barley. We mentioned the reason why there's 6 kernels of barley is because we said there's 6 people coming from Rus and Boaz. It's a hint. A tzaddik wants to actualize it, right? Remember, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah, David, Mashiach Tzidkenu all come from Rus and Boaz. Now, Perek Dalet of the Megillah. And Boaz came to the Sanhedrin, the Sha'ar, the gate means he went to the Sanhedrin, Vayashev Sham, and he sat down there. Hinei HaGoel. Now that is unbelievable faith of luck, how Hashem made. Just so happened that moment Ploni Almoni was walking by. And we call him Ploni Almoni, who's who, because or so-and-so, Mr. So-and-so. The reason we call him that name is because he lost out on an amazing opportunity in this chapter. So Ploni Almoni passes by at that very second, which is unbelievable, because the Medrash says that Boaz did his part, Rus did her part, Naomi did her part, and Hashem says, I have to do my part. So he brings him right there at the moment that they're convening the Sanhedrin. So no one has to wait any longer. So he says, Surah, come here, Shvapo. We learned from here, he tells him to sit down, that it's not appropriate in behavior to sit in front of someone greater than you until they offer you a seat. We learned that from this verse. So now, another reason why we call Mr. So-and-so, not only did he miss out on an opportunity, but he was somewhat of an ignoramus, and he didn't listen to what the Rabbanim told him. We're going to see it. In a minute, he's going to be told something. He doesn't listen to the Rabbanim. He thinks he knows better. And this is what caused him all the problems that he later has to suffer. So now they took 10 men. They took 10 men because there's going to hopefully be a chuppah of somebody. Now, Rus, I don't believe is there yet, but they just have people on the spot there for this moment that's going to occur. And they also have 10 people, for like a based in. So now he tells him, there's a portion of the field. Everybody in their tribes had their appropriate sections given, was sectioned off. Every shevet had a place, every family had a place. Now there was, they're from the same family of Nachshon. So there's a portion of that section that belonged to Elimelech. Naomi sold, and she's the Naomi that's coming back from Moab. And at Pasuk Dalet, 4th verse, I'm telling you, I want you all to hear, here's a chance for you to buy this field. There's a mitzvah in Parshas Bahar that if you have a poor brother, you should redeem his field. And then there's Yibum as the second part of it. But you should redeem his field. You should pay for it. Why? Because we want it in the same family portion that it was before. We don't want it in another place. We want it to belong to the family. So it's a mitzvah for the family to redeem from their poor brethren their portion of the field. So, you redeem it. If you don't want to redeem it, tell me, and please tell me, because I'll know. There's no one else to be able to redeem, and I'm after you. And he said, I will redeem the field. And then Boaz said, but one thing, when you buy the field, this is Pasuk Hey, verse 5, when you purchase the field from Naomi and from Rus the Moaviah, the wife of the departed, you are buying also her as a wife to have Yibum with her. In other words, the child born of the union will be the soul of Machlon. We mentioned Machlon because Hashem forgave him. His Kilion was the first person to decide to take a Moabite woman. Machlon merely followed, and he regretted it before he died. As soon as he hears there's this Moabite woman involved, he says, Lo uchal legol, I can't redeem. Pen ashchises nachlasi, because I'll destroy my inheritance. Now, what does that mean? Two interpretations. Two interpretations. One thing is that I'm sorry.
No, nothing. I'm sorry.
Okay, so two things. Either he was afraid that this whole thing of, you can marry a Moabite woman but not marry a Moabite man, that's a drasha. It's not Torah Moshe Misinai, and he's afraid the next generation may say it's forbidden. You rabbis are saying it's permissible, and I'm saying that it's maybe not permissible, and therefore I am afraid to marry her. Maybe it's not really a mitzvah in the Torah, and you're just making your own drush. And I'm not sure this thing is really 100% true. Second reason, according to, I'm just trying to think about the second, Alshech, he didn't want to marry her because he was already married with a wife and children, and he figured if you bring two wives into the picture and they both have children, you are destroying your family, because there's going to be all this competition and all this kind of stuff. He thought his present wife is not going to handle it well, and his children and everything. The fights, he didn't want to deal with it. So that's why he destroyed. Interesting. I heard from the name of Rav Matisyo Solomon Shlita. He mentions that the biggest chesed is to help out your own family. People look at chesed, to help all these strangers, but the biggest chesed is to help your own family. And here to give your relatives neshama and aliyah. So this is what he lost his opportunity for. Now, we find in, where are we now? So V'zos lifnim b'Yisrael, and this is what used to happen in Yisrael, al ha'geula v'al ha'tmura. We found that this used to happen, l'kaim kol davar shalaf ish na'ala. We hear here that there was a minig Yisrael that person would take off his shoe and he has to give it to the other. It's a very specific, I was told. I heard the Beta Shoe Museum in Toronto has a copy of a chalitza shoe. And also the Beis Din in Toronto, I was told, got their chalitza shoe from somebody in Brisk, an elderly shoemaker who made it for the old Beis Din in Brisk years ago, where they felt it was really a reliable copy of a shoe. And then, so then the Goel, the one that was most likely to redeem. Now, if we say that Boaz was not obligated, he's only a nephew, we still feel, we still feel it's proper to, first consult with, to make this person involved in the story. And he took it upon himself when he didn't even have to, which is really amazing. According to the opinion that Boaz was actually just as close, they were two brothers. He was just as close as Ploni Almoni. Why did he make such a big deal here? Why didn't he just marry her? Because it's not proper that when you're about to do something that you should make any hard feelings in the family. He made sure that Ploni Almoni, even though maybe he was closer he wanted to make sure before he marries her that the other side is, you're doing it with derech eretz, you're giving the other person an opportunity, and you're mentioning it to both. So then he says, Kadei lecha, okay, you acquire it, said the Goel, said Ploni Almoni, and he took off his shoe. So they did the chalitza ceremony. Then Boaz told all the elders, meaning the whole Sanhedrin and the whole nation, Eidim atem hayom, you're all witnesses today that I purchased everything from Elimelech and everything for Kilian and Machlon from Naomi. And also Rus HaMoaviyah, I took for myself as a wife to bring down the soul of the nifter. And then the soul of the nifter will never be cut off from his brethren. And you are all witnesses to this today. And they said, yes, we're all witnesses. And Hashem should give this woman that comes to your house should be like Rachel and Leah, who both came to the Jewish people. And now when he talks about Rachel and Leah, what he's really emphasizing here, three brachas, according to the Malbim. One, that she should be a righteous woman like Rachel and Leah, who were both from a bad family, bad background, and yet she became such a holy woman. You too should, Rus should become holy just like Rachel and Leah did. Then the second bracha is Aseh Chayil be'Ephrasa. This bracha is to Boaz. You should accomplish a lot of good deeds in Ephras. Ephras is where he resided. That's the name of the area. It was like the most important people from the house of Yehuda. That was his family, and should be a glorious name for the whole Jewish people. And then also, and you'll be a name. A child born of this union will have a name in Beis Lechem. And then your house should be like the house of Peretz. Remember, Peretz is the one who was born to Tamar and Yehuda. And you won't be called Rus Moaviyah. You'll be like the house of Peretz. You'll be like in the Davidic family now. And the Yibum will be like that of Tamar and Yehuda, who did, like, so to speak, a Yibum of her child that died, Peretz. And Peretz became the child of the two sons of Yehuda. And you'll have Malchus Beis David. Okay. Pasuk Yud Gimel, 13th verse. Boaz took Rus, she became his wife. He came to her and God made her pregnant and she had a child. We know from the Medrash that Boaz died that day. Okay, anyways, so so she got pregnant and she had a child. And now the women told Naomi, he should be blessed that Hashem brought you a redeemer today, and he has a name in Yisrael, and he should be for you Meshiv Nefesh, which means he should bring back the soul of Machlon. Other people say Meshiv Nefesh just means he should be a comfort to you after all that you suffered. Now and Alshach says he should be something for you in Olam Haba, because when a child does good things, he revives the souls of his deceased parents. He really, every time a child does a mitzvah having his parents in mind, he lifts them up in the world to come. Now, and he also should give you like happiness in your old age, because your daughter-in-law that you loved gave birth to him, and she's good to you like 7 sons. Now, so Naomi took the child. What does it mean? Naomi had milk to nurse this child. Naomi was the nursemaid of this child and not Rus, which is even more incredible. Not only that, Naomi raised the child. I don't think that Rus just ran away and said, wow, I can go shopping for the rest of my life. I think what happened was that everything was under the tutelage of Naomi, and Rus just followed everything she said, and she nursed the child. And then now, so it says, and the neighbors called him a name, and they said a child was named to Naomi, and they called his name Obed. Now, I read, according to other Meforshim, the neighbors did not give the name. Naomi and Rus gave the name, but the neighbors echoed it. They were telling everyone about the name. Here's the deal. They could have named him Machlon, which is who he was, who was coming back for, but they felt Boaz just died. It wasn't appropriate. How could you call him Machlon when Boaz just died? You can't call him Boaz because he was really on the name of Machlon. So they thought that a good common ground here would be Oved, means he's an Oved Hashem. He's a servant of God, and that's the name they settled on. And he was the father of Yishai, the father of David. So Yishai was one of the 4 people that never sinned his entire lifetime. David HaMelech also had a child that never sinned with the other. And then Yishai was, I think, also a man that never sinned. And I forgot, I think the 4th one, no, I don't remember the 4th one. I think it was the son of Reuven. All 4 of these people, by the way, it's wonderful. You go straight to Gan Eden, but they're not. Moshe Rabbeinu's not on the list. David HaMelech is not on the list. Sometimes you have to take chances in life, even though there is a chance of sin, but you accomplish much more, because you're not just asked in life to not do sins. You're asked in life to do mitzvahs. You're asked in life to accomplish something with your life, to see what you can get done during your lifetime. So now it says Peretz gave birth to Chetzron. Chetzron gave birth to Ram. Ram gave birth to Aminadav. Aminadav gave birth to Nachshon. Nachshon gave birth to Salma. So Salma is either Boaz or it's another person. I'm sorry, it's either Salma or it's I guess they get out of this. I'm just noticing it now somehow, but I said there is an opinion that Nachshon and Salma are the same. So Salmon Holidas Boaz. Boaz gave birth to Oved. Oved gave birth to Yishai, and Yishai gave birth to David. So we finished now, Baruch Hashem, our Megillas Rus. Let's just end off with some nice thoughts of this whole thing. Remember, we said the two thoughts when we started the Megillah was the two basic features of this Megillah is to teach us that we are supposed to be for the sake of heaven, even when things look kind of murky, and they sure did in many respects. Boaz walking Rus home and staying the night and the whole business, that the idea of Mashiach being born out of such background is to teach us to be l'shem shamayim. We have to be willing to give up what looks good to other people and do the right thing. And not only what looks good, but a lot of times comforts and all kinds of things to be l'shem shamayim, says the Alshech. There's another idea from Megillas Rus, and that's how the whole Megillah is just full of acts of kindness to teach us all the acts of kindness they all did, thinking of everyone else besides themselves and listening to everyone else beside themselves. And if we want to have a proper Kabbalah Torah, we have to be outside of ourselves. We mentioned last week the idea of how Hashem changed Moshe's face to look like Avram Avinu's face in order that Mashiach should come from a union where, we're not talking about Mashiach, we're talking about Matan Torah. Sorry, I'm distracted. That for Matan Torah, we are supposed to, the basis of our whole Matan Torah is to be open. When you're open and not just into yourself, you can catch the Torah better. You can have Kabbalah Torah better when you think outside yourself. Well, I just want to mention another thought from that. I've mentioned this in past years, but it's one of my favorite Divrei Torah because it's something a lot of people don't know or remember. And that is that we find that there are 3 times that Moshe Rabbeinu kind of changed what Hashem told him to do. When before Matan Torah, when Hashem told everyone for 3 days before we give the Torah, separate from your wives, Moshe took it further and he said, look, if the Jews are separating from their wives for 3 days in order to receive the Torah, I, who Hashem talks to at all times, I have to separate from my wife. And from then on, Moshe left Sipporah, the only person ever in Judaism, and we're not supposed to emulate that. Moshe left his wife because he knew Hashem could speak to him at any moment. And he left his wife. He divorced his wife. Second thing Moshe did from his own judgment is when he came down from Har Sinai with the 10 commandments on the 17th of Tammuz, a mere 40 days after Shavuos, and he sees the Jewish people serving the golden calf. He breaks the 10 commandments. Now, Hashem did not tell him to do that, but he felt, look, if the 10 commandments are in existence and the Jews are sinning, Hashem is going to destroy them. Rather, I should destroy the 10 commandments. They shouldn't deserve them, and the Jews won't be destroyed. He added that on from his own reasoning. And the third time we find that Moshe Rabbeinu made his own calculations was the story of when Moshe Rabbeinu, was I thinking? Yeah, is here. Very, very interesting. Hashem said, prepare yourselves, hayom umachar. Prepare yourselves today and tomorrow. Now, when is the Torah going to be given? Tomorrow? Or is it going to, and tomorrow you'll receive the Torah. So there's 2 ways to interpret the words that were spoken to Moshe Rabbeinu. Does it mean you prepare yourself today and tomorrow you'll get the Torah? Or does it mean that you're supposed to prepare yourself today and tomorrow, and on the 3rd day, you'll get the Torah? Moshe did not consult with Hashem, which is interesting. And he said that the Torah will be given 3 days hence. Today, tomorrow, and the 3rd day, the Torah will be given. Why didn't he ask Hashem? The answer is Moshe felt the Torah needs preparation. So if there's a question, how much preparation? He's adding on, we need an extra day. In fact, Moshe Feinstein Zatzal tells us that this holiday is called Shavuos. Why? because we're celebrating, hopefully, the weeks of effort we made to change our midos. That's what we're celebrating, weeks of effort we made to change our midos. Now, so he added on an extra day, but you don't understand the ramifications. When we say Kiddush every Friday night, we start out by saying Yom HaShishi, and it was on the sixth day that Hashem gave the Torah. Hashem will give the Torah, rather. Why do we say Yom HaShishi? Friday night, almost everyone agrees that Friday night celebrates creation. Shabbos day, there's a lot of references, Shabbos day, to the day we got the Torah, which was also Shabbos. And that's a lot of our davening, and the Kiddush refers to Torah in it. We have quotations from the giving of the Torah in the Kiddush Shabbos morning. Then the Yom HaShishi means that when God created the world, he had in mind, he was creating it for the 6th of Sivan, when the Jews got the Torah. But they didn't get the Torah on the 6th of Sivan. Ladies, we're all celebrating this Sunday will be the 6th of Sivan. And even in Eretz Yisrael, they're only keeping the 6th of Sivan. The Torah was given on the 7th of Sivan because Moshe Rabbeinu Hosif Yom Echad Midato. He added an extra day from his own calculation. That's incredible. That means in Israel, they're not celebrating the day the Torah was given. It was only the second day that the Torah was given. Only in Gullus are we celebrating that the Matan Torah, and it's only the second day. Why? Answer it. Even though that's the day Hashem had intended that this, and Moshe probably even knew that thing in Torah. When Hashem taught him the Torah, he knew the 6th day was intended to be the day that the Torah was given. The whole world was created for the giving of the Torah. Why did he add? There's many interpretations, but the Sifsei Chaim brings down two. He says one interpretation is that we are celebrating Torah Sheba'al Peh, the oral law. That's part and parcel of the Torah. If Moshe Rabbeinu says to do this, it was not exactly Hashem's intention. It's considered like halacha. And that's exactly what happened with Boaz, an interpretation of a Moavi and not a Moaviyah. Well, that's oral law handed down from Moshe Rabbeinu, and we take the oral law like law. The law. So if a Chacham tells us it's to be a day that we're not celebrating, we're not going to do it till the next day. Even Hashem, so to speak, waits to give the Torah an extra day because of Das Torah. How much do we have to listen to the Rabbanim in our time? Yiftach b'doro kishmur b'doro. It doesn't matter who the greatest Torah scholar is. We have to listen to them as if it would be the great Moshe Rabbeinu himself. And he dictated that Matan Torah was a day late. So be it. And also it shows us the importance of preparation, how we should prepare ourselves and appreciate the preparation. I just want to throw in an idea for all of you to think about as we approach holiday of Torah. For those who have not yet taken upon themselves some kind of improvement, I'm sure people were trying to work on their midos, the 49 days of Sphira, but we can still work on ourselves to deserve the Torah. I saw something years ago, and I just reminded myself of it, something that we can all apply. There was a sefer that came out in the 1800s by the name of Cheshbon HaNefesh. It was written, it seemed like I tried it once years ago when I was young and stupid, and it was very hard to do it. He had a whole system. You made like a whole chart, and you had 13 midos to work on, one a week. You would stress one a week. The other ones were like in the background. And that week you learned something about that midah, and then you checked something off if you did it that week. Now, I heard from Rav Victor Miller, Zatzal, a way to do it that could be very easy. We can pick different midos, but we could do it in a way that applies to our generation. Examples, some of the examples, like let's say Simcha. A person wants to work on Simcha. If he said, if you pick 13, and I don't even know if we have to pick 13 midos, but we can think of this, when we're accepting Torah, let's accept we're going to change our midos. Even Victor Miller says a drop makes an impression. And maybe by the time Elul comes around in Rosh Hashanah, we'll have improved ourselves. Let's say you want to work on Simcha. So what you should do is thank Hashem for 5 minutes a day during that week. Yes, for Simcha, Don't listen to the news. Yes, that is very, very important. Victor Miller said that. He said you can glance at headlines, especially today. They're getting worse by the moment. Don't listen to the news. You have to serve Hashem. You don't have to know what's going on in the world. For example, let's say you're working on anger, savlanis, to be patient. Try to find once a day, you're going to find patience for somebody else. Avas Yisrael, try to think of somebody you don't like particularly and try to think of his or her good qualities. Or you could do that for humility. And the Bitachon hotline says that today humility doesn't mean I'm a nothing. Think of how somebody else is a something, how every single person is so precious. Tell yourself, if for Bitachon, spend 5 minutes that day telling yourself, Hakol Yachol, he can do everything. Talk about precious. People can get themselves off their phones. Don't touch the cell phone for an hour that day, let's say, or 2 hours or 5 hours, whatever you'd like to do. Patience. Don't do something right away. Think about it before you do it. Think of little chunks, 5 minutes a day that you can try to work on different midos. You can make it a chart. That week, you're going to focus on one thing. You learn a little bit about that midah during the week, and then have some little small exercise, and it does make a dent, and it does make a difference, and it does make an impression. Avas Hashem, or Victor Miller was always into, I love you, Hashem, to try to say it, a few times a day or whatever, however you want to work it. Do something that's small, bite-sized, easy to do, and lo and behold, we will slowly, click the, how do you say, knock out the rocks inside of us somehow, slowly but surely. I'm thinking of the analogy of whatever it is when you're clicking the rocks with a chisel away at the rocks within us and slowly get to improving our character. I thank you all for listening. I wish you all a wonderful Kabbalah Torah, and I thank Elisheva for setting up so beautifully for us, and Debbie Menzelewski, who is amazing, what she does of putting out the emails every week. Thank you all for everything. I wish you all a wonderful Yantif, a wonderful Yar. And now we can mute ourselves. We can unmute ourselves and any questions.